Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to walk you through how I achieved this little pumpkin using oil paints. Now, I am not an oil painter by any means. I've actually avoided oils at all cost pretty much my whole artistic career. I never really thought oils were going to be for me, and then one day I just decided to jump in and try them, and I'm kind of hooked a little bit. They kind of won me over. So I've done 3 beginner oil paintings so far, and I wanted to focus on complementary colors. So the first one was using red and greens, this one was using blue and orange, and then the next one will be using purple and yellow. And for all of these paintings, I only used the primary colors, so I picked a yellow, a red, and a blue, and that's what I used to mix all of my colors. And as always, all of the supplies that I've used will be linked in the description down below. So let's just get into today's video. So like I said in the intro, I'm only using the 3 primary colors here. I've got a yellow, a red, and a blue. Now the red that I'm using here leans a little warmer as opposed to a cooler pinker red, and that's because this red will make better oranges. So I'm taking the yellow and the red together and I'm mixing a nice pumpkin orange color. And how I'm using these oil paints right now, like I said, I'm not an oil painter typically, so I'm just using these the way I would any other medium. So I'm coming in with my orange color and I'm filling in the main orange colors that I can see in the pumpkin. And I'm leaving some spaces for some darker areas. So I'm not filling in all the areas around the groove so I can see where I need to come back in with some of my darker colors. And same for the highlights. I'm leaving some spaces so I can come back in and put some lighter colors in. Now, because I am newer to oils and newer to blending them, I'm not focusing on adding a whole bunch of different colors to this pumpkin at this time. I'm just worrying about my midtones, my darks, and my highlights. And getting those 3 values and the colors in here is going to make this look realistic, not adding a bunch of different colors into the pumpkin. Now I've stuck mainly with this number 4 flat brush for most of these beginner oil paintings that I'm doing. And it's working out pretty well. I believe this is a Robert Simmons brush. And I just keep dipping back into the color that I've already mixed up to get my orange colors in. And now I'm mixing a lighter yellowy orange color for the highlights of the pumpkins. So I'm just adding a little bit more yellow. And I'm sort of just blocking these colors in right now, but then I'll come in when I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. And I kind of use that to blend the edges of these colors together. I was trying to simplify these oil paintings as much as possible for not only myself, but anyone that's new to oil paints that want to try them out. Now I'm taking a little bit of the blue, and I believe this is the ultramarine blue, and I'm mixing that in with my orange to get like a browny orange color. And this is what I'm going to use for my dark areas in the pumpkin. So those little areas that I left, those grooves, this is where I'm going to put this color in. And again, I like to lay this color down and let it sit for a minute, and then I come back with a dry brush and I will blend those edges. And this is all done wet and wet. And I am using a little bit of liquid here that I'm mixing into my paints, so this will allow the paints to dry a little bit quicker, but it'll still take about 24 hours for this layer to dry completely, so you still have lots of time to blend these paints, even if you're using a fast-drying medium like liquid or something else. And this is the one thing that I think I loved the most about these oil paints, was being able to just lay the colors in and then come back. I would wipe my brush off on a paper towel, so it's just a little bit damp. There might be a little bit of color in there of the last color that I used, and then I would come back and kind of run that brush over those edges and really soften them out, and I love the look that this gave me. And this painting was fairly quick to do as well. So this is sped up, but I think it took me around an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour for this pumpkin. And when I want to get those darker shadows in, I just mix a little bit more of my ultramarine in there to make it darker brown color. Now I'm taking the yellow and the ultramarine to make a green, and this is going to be the color that I'm using for the stem. I add just a dab of red in there to kind of tone it down because I don't want as bright of a green. I want a little bit more of an earthy green. And I'm just testing my colors out on a little scrap piece of paper. I love to do this with most mediums that I'm using, like watercolor or gouache. And I'm still using that small size 4 flat brush. And I'm using the straight edge of it here to get these little lines in. So I'm working on the darker grooves within the stem right now. Now I've done all this in one setting, so my pumpkin is still wet, so I'm trying to be careful not to smudge these green colors into the pumpkin. Now before I come in with the background, I am going to go ahead and let this sit overnight, and both the pumpkin and the stem has dried completely. Now that's only because I'm using the liquid. So if you are using another medium like linseed oil or just the oils themselves, they could take up to about a week to dry completely. So keep that in mind. Depending how you like to paint with your oils, that might be great for you or it may not. The way that I'm choosing to use them right now, I'm not really blending too much, so I could have done the background right away. But I also want to play around with oils more and do more layering and blending, so maybe letting a layer dry completely and then coming on top with some more paint. This is just sort of my first steps into oil painting, if you will. And I'm just taking a little bit of white and the same green colors that I've been using. I'm using that to get that little end part of the stem in. And then I add a little bit more yellow to this and a little bit more white. And I'm really making the lighter areas in between those dark grooves. So the area of the stem that pokes out, I want to make sure that's bright enough so that the darker areas look dark enough. So it's that contrast that's going to give it the realistic look. And you can see how dark this green is that I'm using right now. So I just added a little bit more ultramarine into the dark green that I was using because I'm noticing that my light and my darks in the stem are looking a little too close. So I need to either get one a little bit darker or get the other a little bit lighter, or a combination of both. So even though I say this is my first time, well, technically my second time using oil paints, I can still make a realistic looking painting. So this pumpkin looks realistic. It's not hyper realistic or anything like that, but it looks like a pumpkin. And that's only because I've had time to get my accuracy. So my drawing accuracy is good. My values is good. I can get my lights light and my darks dark. So the contrast is in there. So if you can get an object to look accurate and your contrast is there, then you can make a realistic painting. And basically you carry those skills over into any other medium that you want to use. So now I'm coming in with the ultramarine and I'm mixing white into that to get a very nice light blue. And this is what I'm going to use for the majority of the background. I really love this blue color, how it popped against the pumpkin. And since my pumpkin's dry, I'm just coming in with either a paper towel or some Kleenex. And if I get the background onto the pumpkin, I can use that and just wipe it off. It's very convenient. Now I've also mixed the liquid into this so my background will dry. I believe the background was dry within 24 hours, maybe 30 hours at the most, because I was using it a little bit thicker here, a little bit more thick paint so it would cover the background completely. And I'm trying not to touch the edges too much here, but I want to get all of the edges in as well. And then I just go ahead and add a little bit more of that ultramarine and a little bit of my red and yellow because I want to darken this down and gray it up a little bit. So I'm just using my red and my blue to kind of purple it up a little bit. And then once I get a purple color, I will come in with my yellow to kind of tone that down and gray it. So I've got sort of like this grayish blue color going on. And this is going to be my shadow color. And I really love how this painting turned out. I think this is one of my favorites. Now, I'm sure some of you who have used oil paints in the past are screaming at me saying this is not typically how you use oil paints, but I had fun painting this and I really like how it came out. And leave your comments and suggestions down below. Am I using these paints right or wrong? Honestly, I don't really think there is a right or wrong when it comes to art, but I would love to hear your suggestions on how to use these oil paints better. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye!